What's going on, Tamers? It's your boy Varney, and today I have a different type of video for y'all. As you can tell from the title, this is how I built my 18th place Ultimate Cup deck list, which just so happens to be Magnamon armors. And before we jump into this video, I just want to say that if you are a YouTube member, you'll be seeing this video early as I thank you for supporting us. You can find out more about it by clicking the link in the description down below, and you get a bunch of special perks for doing that. We appreciate the support that y'all give us, so this is one of the ways that we try to give it back to y'all. Now, with that being said, I came up with the idea for this video because I literally brewed this deck at about 2 a.m. on a Friday night or morning, however you want to look at it, as I'd gotten the email from PlayTCG 2 hours prior that I had gotten into the Ultimate Cup off the waitlist. So of course I registered, but I had no clue what I was going to play. I definitely was not feeling Fenry because it let me down multiple times prior, and the deck requires so much setup, and it's just a little bit too slow in a way for some of the faster decks in our meta. But more importantly, my heart was not feeling it. So the decision came down to either Magnamon armors or Beelzemon. And while I do love my Beelzemon, something in my heart was telling me, you know you want to play Magnamon armors. Anything else would be a disservice to yourself. And so I went with my heart, which obviously paid off. So what we're going to explore in this video is how exactly I built my Ultimate Cup deck list that I had absolutely no playtesting with and had never played before outside of Armor Rush all the way back in BT8. So the very first thing I do whenever I'm deck building is look to other lists for inspiration and a basis. I had the idea of a deck in mind already, but my biggest thing is validating my ideas with what others are doing. And so I took off to a resource that we all know very well, eggmanevents.com. I knew 2 Magnamon armor lists had topped due to the meta snapshots that I do, which you guys should check out. So that immediately popped into my head, first thing. So coming over here to Eggman events, you see, all the regionals. This is where you guys can go. You can see in the top 16 breakdown pie charts that are on each regional or Ultimate Cup, whatever the tournament is that is on Eggman events, you can see everything that you need to know. So we found the 2 events that Magnamon did top. The first one was the Sydney regionals. This was an OCE event, Oceania, where it was Josper who placed 12th. He went 5-2. And then we also had the Texas Mesquite regionals hosted by PlayTCG, in which it was Carlos who placed 16th place, going 5-1-1. So first we went over and we took a place at Josper's list. And I mean, if you look at Josper's list and you look at Carlos's list, they're both about the same. There are just minor differences in between the two. One of the biggest things right off the bat is seeing the Wereguru Ace in place of a 3rd Zoodle Ace. You also see that there is 4 removal here, 2 Heaven's Judgment, 2 Full Moon Meteor Impact, whereas there's just 1 and 2 here. We see that Josper was also running the Ruin mode, just 1 Dexmon. Meanwhile, Carlos was running 3 whole Dexmon. It's just these minor changes that these players made. I knew immediately, obviously, base was going to be 4 of the movie Vmon because that card is amazing. 4 Ukomon because card is also amazing. 4 Searcher Vmon from BT12, the Imperial Searcher, because it not only searches out a free trait, but searches out your Davis. And I immediately knew that I was playing Davis. I didn't play this one, spoiler, but I did play 3 of the promo Davis. So good for the deck, and I knew I wanted to be able to search that out. And then definitely wanted at least 2 of these searchers so I could search out some more free traits. As far as my ratios, I decided that I was going to go 3 BT8 and 4 of the BT13. I switched that around. Not that it was like a obnoxiously bad decision, but I definitely wanted to have this more than I did. This card is cracked. I don't even need to talk about that. And then I decided to go a little bit more of the control route, which we will get into later, but I did use these lists as a basis for my list. From there, I hopped on over to DigimonMeta.com, which if you guys didn't know is another good resource for looking at deck lists from not only the English meta, but also the Japanese meta. And I looked at all of the BT15 Armor and Magnamon deck list, which had a couple options. So from here, you go to decks up here, and then you'll see that you have both options for the Japanese and English format. We went to JP BT15, and then from there, I searched for both Magnamon, just to make sure I don't know why it doesn't show up when you type in Magnamon, but I found these 3 deck lists. I tried typing in armor just to see if, anything else would come up. but generally, like, you'll find it under the name of either Magna or Armors, because those are the main cards or archetype of the deck. So we had the 3 deck list. It's Maga X. That's why they have it. That's why it doesn't show up under Magnamon. I didn't like these. You know, I wasn't trying to run Armor Rush. I didn't want the Flame Dramon, the Raijamon. I just wanted straight Magnamons because I do really like Magnamon. I love Royal Knights. So big reason why I wanted to play the deck. I love Royal Knights. So I just wanted to play Royal Knight Tribal, essentially. That's what it boiled down to. So I knew, I was like, all right, I looked at this. I was like, yeah, we're not feeling anything from this list. We're not feeling anything from this list either. And again, we're not feeling anything from this list. These lists, they were dead to me. I didn't care for these lists. So what I did after that was I came over here and I went into the BT16 format. And the reason I went into BT16 is because I wanted to see what some lists were doing in terms of, obviously, you know, they're playing the BT16 Magnamon, but I wanted to see what else these lists might have been doing. So I looked at some of the early on lists from BT16 to see how they started, and I looked at some of the later lists to see how they ended. And so in looking at those, I found, yeah, I mean, some people ran, you know, this one at 2, but it really depended. Like, some were very aggro build. I mean, this one's running Omni X, Blitz Omni, like, that's kind of nuts. This one was a little bit more, you know, we got the Fire Rocket in here, definitely a lot thinner. No Ukomons. That was like the big thing. Nobody was running Ukomons over here, but of course they did have Jamming Buka at 4, but they were still running some of the same base. You know, you still got the Davises, you still had the Heaven's Judgment, the Awakening of the Golden Knight. And then looking at some of the later lists, I saw the Shu and I was like, yeah, I think the Shu's a good option, because I know that some of the lists were playing the Shu later on. That's why I was like, why? Like, where did they get to that point? Why are they running it? What are they doing? So I was like, yeah, okay. I definitely think I could play the Shu. The Shu makes sense. I saw Jessamon GX. I was like, I have to play Jessamon GX in this. Like, it just makes sense. I can just do some really dumb stuff. And then coming down here, I was like, yeah, I've seen Shu in 3 consecutive lists. So this just helped me put some ideas in my head, you know, lots of spicy texts, obviously a lot of variations. And so this is where deck building gets tricky, and why deck building is truly a skill. It's one thing to take a deck, copy it card for card and play it, but you have to understand why you are playing X card. What does that card help you with? How does it help you in your deck strategy? And how does it help secure the win? So I like to think of myself as a spicy guy, sometimes too spicy to the point that it spoils the food. I saw lists obviously playing, you know, the Zudo Ace. We saw the Were Garurumon Ace. Nobody was playing Magna Ace. And I was like, I'm a yellow player. Magna Ace is a really good card in Yellow Vaccine. I am playing some yellow level 4s. Let's play Magna Ace. I did see the value in Zudo Ace though, so I decided to go with a 1-2 split, which was the worst decision. I think that is, retrospectively, the worst deck building decision I have ever made in my life. I have made a lot of like precarious deck building decisions, but that one is like the worst. And we'll get into it. Just Magna Ace was so bad for me all tournament. It never came up when I needed it to. And even then, I just kept wishing it was Zudo Ace. So to answer my 3 earlier questions, number 1, what does Magna Ace help me with? The things that Zudo Ace doesn't, which is deletion. Sometimes I don't want to put cards back in my opponent's hand because I'd rather just delete them. And I also thought the recovery might be helpful, especially as a blast option because of my yellow champions. How does it help my deck strategy? Well, since I built it to be more control oriented with the 3 level 7 control options of Ruin Mode, Merciful Mode, and Dexmon, and the 3 hard removal options, I was like, yeah, sure, it's a control card, it fits, right? And then how does it help secure the win? Well, it should help me secure the win by controlling the parts of the game that I thought it would help me with. You know, being a control card. In theory, card was great, but in practice, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Zudo Ace was the star of all of my ace plays, and it would have, honestly, if I had more Zudo Ace, it would help me not only secure some of my dicier matchups a lot easier, it might have also helped me continue my undefeated streak. I could do that analysis with every card in the deck, but I won't because the video would be way too long. The biggest thing that you need to know is how to approach competitive deck building, especially if you're trying to spice up a list yourself, or if you're trying to build a new one completely from scratch, which I don't really recommend, honestly, unless you're trying to complete some brew. Why? Because if you're not trying to build brew, why reinvent the wheel? Deck lists are out there for public knowledge, and it worked for someone, so why not take that and build upon it rather than making yourself do more work than necessary? So after throwing my deck list together on DigimonCard.dev, I tossed it over to a friend for some ideas. Someone who I knew would be up at 2 a.m. on a Friday night. And that was my boy Panzer. Shout out to Panzer. I'd normally hit up, Dan, Adrian, Mike, Gino, but I figured they all were asleep, so wasn't even going to try to bother them. Panzer and I get on well enough. We share some ideas here and there. We tend to bounce ideas off of each other. And that leads into the next point. Find someone that you like, who plays the game well. They don't have to play the game the same way you do, but you should value them as a person and a player well enough to bounce ideas off of and trust them for advice. So in consulting with Panzer is how I opted to go for the more control route. Like I said, originally I was going to go with Jessamon GX, and he recommended I replace Protoform with the BT9X antibody because it would combo better, which makes sense. But I absolutely loved the idea of Protoform. Way too much to cut the card. I was trying to think about, well, maybe I can cut another card to fit the X antibody. I couldn't. There was no deck space. And then he gave me the idea to replace it with Merciful and play to my control style, which I was like, you know what? Yeah. That makes even more sense. Jessamon GX out, Omnimon Merciful mode in. The rest of the deck passed the vibe check, and so it was time for me to build it. I went to my binders, started grabbing cards out, but then I noticed Digimon Emperor, which is a card that was not originally in my list, and I was like, yeah, I should be playing this card. There is no reason I should not be playing Digimon Emperor in our Ukomon meta. Now, another card that weaseled its way into the deck was Starter Deck Tai, the one from the Dragon of Courage starter deck. And the next thing you know, I had a slightly different build from what I had originally concocted. I don't have any regrets outside of the Magna Ace, but luckily I did make the decision to bump it down from 2 to 1 so I could play an extra tamer, and I am glad I did that because I did like having all of my tamers even if I didn't utilize the Shu the way that I wanted to, or Tai to its fullest potential. And that's it. I was up until about 5 a.m. sleeping the deck. Thank God I did that then, and not 30 minutes before the tourney like I was originally going to when I set my alarm, because I would have been stressing hard. It took me way longer to sleep that deck than I thought. And so a lot of the ideas made sense on paper. Starter Deck Tai helped my Magna X not be such a weenie by pumping it up to 13k, as well as making the champion Magnamon's bigger on block. Shu gives Alliance to X antibody, so I thought that would work with old Magna X. It worked with the new one. Why wouldn't it work with the old one, right? That was my thought. Digimon Emperor, like I said, that's the Ukomon and level 3 main phase savior. I thought Magna Ace would have put into work, as well as Merciful mode. Unfortunately, some of those decisions panned out, and some of them did not. You win some and you lose some. As part of the trial and error when it comes to deck building. If I had play tested the deck, I definitely would have found these things out. I probably would have arrived at my current version of the deck sooner. But unfortunately, I had no time for that and had to test the deck out in tourney, which wasn't so bad, apparently. Anyways, that's it. That's how I built the deck. I did record a deck list live on stream after my tourney run, so for those of you who didn't or haven't seen it yet, it will be on YouTube here soon. You'll want to give that one a watch when it drops so that you can see some more of the insights that I gave behind the choices on some cards, whether for ratios, inclusions, exclusions, or whatever. It should answer most, if not all, of your questions. And if you like this video, please drop a like and also drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. Would you like to see more videos like this? Would you like me to see me or hear me do or talk about anything differently? And the last thing is subscribe so that you know when future videos come out. Thank you guys for watching, and until I talk to you guys the next time, peace out.